Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. It is 6 o'clock, so welcome to this meeting of the Development Licensing Committee. Again, should anyone wish to record or film any proceedings, the protocols are there in the designated space. And again, it would be assumed that whereas members are perfectly happy with that to happen, unless permission has been obtained from members of the public, they would not be included in that. Thank you very much. May I have apologies, please?
Apologies have been received from Mr Parsons, Mr King and Mr Langham, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed.
Mr Hollis.
And Mr Hollis. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Under this section, could I just say that I do have to leave at 8 o'clock tonight. I have previously made the Chair aware, but if the meeting is still going, could I please tender my apologies for the rest of it?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vernon. Thank you. Could I have somebody please propose and confirm the minutes of the meeting on the 6th of January? Mr Dale, thank you. Seconder, please. Mrs Cartwright, and those in favour, please. Thank you. And abstentions, 2. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest, please, Mr Woodcock.
Yes, application number 3, the David Miller Homes. That development is at the end of my property.
Thank you very much indeed.
So, could I say for any debate, but not be involved in any
I'll take legal advice.
Councillor Woodcock, you need to be clear on the reason that you are declaring your interest. If it is a disclosable pecuniary interest, then you could disclose that and then withdraw from the meeting. If you are saying it might be considered by members of the public sitting in the gallery watching the events, might consider that you would be influenced by the fact that you live near to the development site, then you might also determine to withdraw. You could speak and then withdraw. My advice would be that you would not stay for any vote or debate, but that you speak. Yes.
Mr Gale.
When there's an application for an agricultural dwelling, and we've got 2 tonight, I normally have in the past declared the fact that I actually live in a property with a similar condition.
Thank you. Any other members? I have to declare on 2, item 4, the Uppingham application, as I did when the main application was considered, family-owned property adjacent to it, I will withdraw and take no part. And item number 8, the one at Brooke, I in fact own agricultural land across the road from that site. Although I do not have a pecuniary interest, in the interest of probity, I shall exercise my right to speak and will then leave the meeting.
Could I just confirm which item that is?
And that is item 7, sorry, I said item 8, it's 213 0376. Thank you. No more interest. Do I have any petitions, deputations and questions?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. And any deputations relating to planning?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. We're then on to the development control items, starting at page 3. I think members will be aware that item 8, the last one on the agenda, has been the subject of correspondence in the past 24 hours. That addendum runs to 7 pages. I do not think it would be appropriate, bearing in mind the previous application as well, I do not think it would be appropriate to take that tonight. I do understand that there is at least one member of the public here for that item, and therefore from the Chair I'm going to propose that we defer that without debate and take it at the next meeting so that you have time to examine the addendum properly. Mr Oxley.
I'll second that, Mr
Thank you very much indeed. Those in favour, please. And against? 1. So that is duly carried. So that item is deferred and it will be taken next. Thank you. So we move then to the first of those, which is the Hambleton, Ketton Road, Hambleton. Mr Barrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The application is being brought back before the committee. Members may recall it was approved or a result of grant permission by the committee previously, subject to conditions in preparation of a Section 106 agreement to secure developer contributions on the site. As noted in the report on the 28th of November last year, Government amended National Planning Practice Guidance, essentially advising that local planning authorities should not seek developer contributions on sites of this scale. On the 6th of January this year, Cabinet resolved that amended government policy should be implemented with immediate effect, and on that basis, officers consider it no longer appropriate to seek a planning obligation on this site. On the basis of the decision reached last time, the application has been brought back before you with a recommendation for approval, subject to the conditions of the previous report, but without the requirement for a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, this and the next 3 items are all on this technicality as a result of the changed thing. It's therefore not appropriate to go back over on the planning reasons. It is simply a matter of approving the changed guidelines whereby 106 contributions are not required. Unless members have anything on that, I'm looking for immediate, Mr. Gale, immediate proposal.
Yes.
That's what you're going to do?
Yes.
Secondly? Yes. Thank you very much indeed. Those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We can then move on to the
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, again, this application has been previously resolved for granting permission. On this occasion, it's the removal of an agricultural planning condition on the application, and the condition, the agreement which previously required was relating to the affordable housing contribution. Again, the new government guidance requires or advises that these are no longer appropriate, and so again we're seeking committee's approval without the requirement for that Section 106 agreement.
Okay, thank you. Proposed Mr Gale, seconded Mr Oxley. Those in favour, please. Thank you very much indeed. And the third one is still...
again, the same principle, a previous resolution to grant consent subject to developer contribution that is no longer justified by national guidance.
Sorry, Mr Woodcock, I've been moving so quickly. I'm sorry. Giving you a chance.
Okay. You see, yeah.
Yes, yes. For the sake of protocol, if I can. Thank you. I'm going to give Mr Woodcock time to catch his breath. Again, the same. Yes, you've already, I think, said what you had to say.
Yes, and there's nothing really further to add.
Proposed Mr Cross, seconded Mrs Vernon. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much indeed. I will now withdraw for the next item. So, Mrs Vernon, if you could take my place, please.
Come back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to item number 4 then. So if we could have the presentation, Mr Gear, I think the same as previously.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Different voice, but same issue. Planning Commission was granted, well, resolved to be granted by this committee last year, subject to Section 106 agreement to secure development contributions. The proposal was the conversion of the former doctor's surgery in Uppingham into a single dwelling, hence at the time those contributions were relevant. But for the same reasons as set out earlier by Mr Barrow, the change of government guidance and then the change in our own policy as a result of the Cabinet decision of January this year, we do consider that Section 106 agreement is no longer relevant, and therefore again, Chairman, it is recommended to you that you resolve once more to approve this subject to the previous conditions without the need for any development contributions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Gitt. On behalf of the proposer, Mrs Cartwright, and seconded Mr Cross. I'll put that straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please. Okay, I'll get Mr Baines back. He's already here.
Yes, it's gone. Sorry, 2040. Right, item number 5 then, we have got Mr Gear, I think, on the market Overton. Mr Gear.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We're in Market Overton for this next item, and it's a replacement dwelling, and it is recommended to you for approval. So first of all, if you just look at the local geography, that is map of Market Overton. Bowling Green Lane is there, Main Street's across here, there's Fountains Row, and from the top end of Bowling Green Lane you can see King's Close coming in here. This is the application site there, backing onto Fountains Road, and it is one of a number of detached properties within that relatively recently built close. Close up then of it, there's King's Close there. Access is available into the application site through this almost circular turning head here and in this way. That is the dwelling that is there at the moment and is proposed for replacement. Bring that to life slightly with the aerial photograph. So again, you can see the existing property there. If we point out neighbouring properties there, and then backing onto Fountains Road here, you can also see that there's a fair amount of vegetation within the site. And then just closer up again, you can see the dwelling here that is proposed for demolition and then subsequent replacement. So that is a more detailed and technical drawing of the house as existing at the moment. It's an L-shaped 2-storey like so. It's then got a conservatory at the rear and then a single-storey element here, which mainly comprises the garage. This next one then is the proposal that is in front of you this evening, replacement dwelling. You can see it's more or less the same alignment next door to number 2 here, but it's now 2-storey across all of that element there. The garage now moves across to this L-shaped part here, and there's 1.5-storey accommodation at the first floor level above that. So we then move to the layout plans. Now forgive me, these have flipped 180 degrees, so this is now the frontage of the site. The 2-storey element is across here, that's the garage, and in a moment I'll show you that there is 1.5-storey accommodation above the garage here. And then here is the first floor. So it's a 4-bedroom property. 3 of them are accommodated within the 2-storey element here, and then in the 1.5-storey element there's a guest bedroom above the proposed garage. In terms of elevations, that's the view from the front. So the 2-storey element there, the front door, this is the garage, and then the 1.5-storey bit above the garage to provide the guest accommodation. This then is the rear, and you can see a small single-storey element there, gable feature there and there. And then the 2 sides, that's first of all the side that's facing number 2, so that would be the frontage here, and then the rear going on there across to your left. And then finally a view across to the west towards number 4, and beginning to see a side door there, the garage is behind here, the rear there, and then the front across to the left. So the issues for you to consider this evening, first of all, the principle of development. Secondly, the impact of the new dwelling on the conservation area and the street scene. And then thirdly, the impact of the new dwelling on the residential amenity of those neighbouring properties. So if we could take principle first of all. There's the site again, and this is an application for a replacement dwelling within the planned limits of development of a local service centre. So in principle, our policies tell us that that proposal is acceptable. We move on then to the impact on the street scene and the conservation area. It is fairly central within the conservation area, but King's Close itself is a recent development and probably isn't too much in harmony with the more historic part of the conservation area. And I'd like to show you some views from the front across here. So first of all, that's a recent photograph. That's neighbouring property number 2 there. This is that turning head at the end of the cul-de-sac that I referred you to. And this then is the existing dwelling there. You can see that they're a little bit of an angle from each other. You can also see that the application site is set back behind the hedgerows there and there. And then just a close-up then through the access gate for the existing dwelling. Now I can show you the proposed replacement dwelling. And this is taken from the far end of that turning area I pointed out. That's the existing property number 2. This is the proposed replacement dwelling I've shown you already here. You can see that it is taller. The height has been negotiated down during the lifetime of the application, but it is taller than the neighbouring property at number 2. However, the applicant has provided some perspective drawings, which I'd like to use to demonstrate one or two of the issues here. They have told us in the supporting letter that they're basing those drawings on a topographical survey of the existing features, plus their own technical drawings for the new development. So looking at this then from a public area at the turning head of the cul-de-sac, you can see that yes, the new dwelling is taller than the existing, but it does have a fairly harmonious relationship with the two lined up like so. So the view that we would offer you is that the impact on the street scene and on the conservation area is acceptable. There is no objection from the conservation officer, and we offer you that advice despite the objection from the parish council. So we move on then to residential amenity, and we have received 2 objections. One from property here number 2, and then one from number 1 Fountains Row at the rear here. Both are concerned about the impact on their residential amenity, but number 2 here is also concerned about the loss of some of the trees within the application site, and also about the proximity of the 2-storey element of the new dwelling to their own property. And what I'd like to do is just take you on a tour around the application site like so, just to illustrate the relationship of the new dwelling to those existing properties. And if we could start then with number 2 here. So this is a photograph taken across the front of the existing property. You can see the 2-storey element of the existing property here. That's the neighbouring property. There are no windows there at first floor level. This is the single-storey element of the existing property. And this is just a close-up then of the relationship between that and the existing property number 2. And this is another one of those perspective drawings provided by the applicant. You can see that the 2-storey element is now closer to the existing neighbouring property, but it still leaves a gap there of 3.7 metres, and you also have the blank gable end lined up with the blank gable end of the existing property. The advice to you is that the impact of that on number 2 is not something that raises concern. If we then move around to the rear, that is number 2 there, that's the existing property here, and as I showed you earlier, the 2-storey element will then move closer across this way. That is some of the existing vegetation that's referred to in the report. Again, as said in the report, none of that is worthy of retention within the conservation area for its public amenity benefit. So if we then look just a little closer, that's number 2 there. The existing property is across here on the development site. And then this is the proposed dwelling in situ. Again, the relationship along the rear is fairly well lined up. Yes, this is a larger one, but we feel that the impact on number 2 isn't sufficient to warrant a concern. Number 2 have mentioned that with the loss of some of the vegetation here, there's likely to be more overlooking into their property. But with the 2 properties lined up next to each other, that angular view is not uncommon, and we couldn't in any case, we think, protect the vegetation along that boundary in any case. That there is a secondary bedroom, then the 2 en-suites with glazed windows, steel glazed windows. This is the master bedroom here, but it is some distance from the boundary. And that then is just another close-up, again showing you the relationship between the 2, albeit with the vegetation still in situ. So we then move on around a wee bit and just take a look at the impact on Fountains Row here. firstly these properties and then the one we received the objection from, number 1. So it's not the best photograph and it is slightly stretched, but this is taken from the first floor window of the existing property. That is number 3, 4 and 5 Fountains Road there. You can see that there are no windows, and just one small window tucked in right here somewhere. Number 1, where we received the objection from, is across here. And that is a view from the development side across from number 1. The objection is overlooking. Given the changes, we don't feel that the proposed dwelling has any unacceptable overlooking on that property. Then move further around. If we just take a look at the impact on number 4 here. That's the 2-storey element of the existing dwelling. The 2-storey element of the new one was moved slightly further away, and there is also some vegetation in between. So take a look at the photograph. That's the existing property. That's number 4 there, some distance away. And this is the elevation that will be facing number 4. There's 2 windows at the first floor level. That's an ensuite. There's a secondary window to a bedroom. Both are proposed to be obscure glazed, and there's also a condition recommended to you that it remains as such. So, take you then to the conclusions, Chairman. We feel that the principle of development is acceptable in this location. We feel that the design and the layout have an acceptable impact on the street scene and the conservation area. From the tour and the neighbouring properties that I've shown you there, we also feel that there is an acceptable impact on the amenity of the neighbouring premises, and therefore, Chairman, it is recommended to you for approval, subject to the conditions set out. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
The relationship between the 2 properties is something you find in any town, and I really see no problem in one of our most substantial villages. There's quite a large house there now. It's going to be replaced by a new large house. I have no problem whatsoever.
Any other members? In that case, Mr Dale?
I
propose. Second, Mrs Cartwright. Those in favour, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on to item 6. That's the one with page. Yeah. And that can start with, isn't it? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application that Ranksborough Mobile Home Park in Langham. Before I start off, and in case I forget at the end, you will note that the recommendation is subject to the modification of the existing Section 106 agreement that covers the whole site. This is the site itself, Ranksborough Mobile Home Park, on the northwest side of the main village of Langham. Ranksborough Drive, there's some privately owned properties as you come up Ranksborough Drive, and then we enter into the park, which is split into 3 distinct elements. Running along the southern edge here is Overton Road, and later on in the presentation you'll see some photographs taken through a gate and a gap in the hedge along that road. You'll see the reasons why when we get there. Just to show the mobile homes that are situated along this southern edge of this part of the site. So this is the application side, which is the appendices in your report. The blue land is the other land within Ranksborough Park that is owned by the applicant, but the application only relates to this red area, which is the residential part of Ranksborough Park. This area in here has planning permission for mobile homes for holiday use only, so there is some static mobile homes in there. And this part here is a touring caravan site. And there you'll see that that's the holiday site, and the touring caravan site is in there, so that's plan there is to help you see the relationship. So the application that we're considering tonight, or that you're considering tonight, is covering this area here, which is known as Lonsborough Gardens. And this area here, which is known as the glade, or the old park, I think there's some confusion as to which bits of that I call what at the moment, but generally that's known as the glade. And then this area here is Lodge Park, which is the first section that you come to along Ranksborough Drive from the A606. On the A606 there is private residential development known as the Range, and some representations were received from residents at the end of the Range here. They were concerned that this application may result in new mobile homes being placed in this area behind their properties. And in the presentation you'll see photographs taken in the back of this property here, which has these garages and outbuildings. But along that line there, where you can see some trees, there is an embankment there, and these residents here have garden rights up to the top of that embankment, which is planted up. Beyond that is a row of what appears to be coppiced willows, and then beyond that, where there is a brick boundary wall, just inside the brick boundary wall there are more mature, what appear to be deciduous trees. That area is effectively landlocked at the moment because there's no access to it, because all of these properties have their gardens within that area. So any concerns about mobile homes going in there is perhaps a little bit premature. But even if some did go in there, provided they complied with the site licence, it wouldn't necessarily cause any great harm to amenity. And that's a photograph from the top of that bank looking back at that host unit in that case. These were taken on a dreadfully dark, rainy day, I'm afraid. That's looking over down towards the south side of the site. And that's the view from the bank through these coppiced willows, and you can just make out the top of the boundary wall with the property on the range beyond. I apologise for the quality of those photographs, it was pretty dark. So this area is known as the glade. There's been some concern about the impact along this edge in particular, where 4 new mobile homes have recently been sited. And you'll see when we come to the issues on landscaping and visual impact, you can see this is the latest 2011 aerial photograph. You can see that there was some vegetation along there. It's been suggested that a hedge had been taken out of there and that these new mobile homes have been sited tight to the boundary, which indeed they have, as you'll see from the photographs. But there's little evidence to suggest what that boundary hedge actually was. And it's been stated that it was nothing more than brambles. So that, just where that road comes down there is a new link through at this point onto this road that comes around here, so you can actually go around in a loop. And the next photograph is taken from here looking along that new section of road. So these are the new units that have been placed along that southern boundary. So these units are privately owned, but they are sited on the Ranksborough site, which is owned by the owner, and they pay an annual rent, much as you would do with a static caravan on a caravan site. And that's looking back the other way, so these are the new ones on the left, along that section of road. That's from Langham Gardens, looking through between a couple of the units there, back to the back of Ranksborough Hall itself, which is outside the application site in this instance. So the main issues here are the need to simplify the existing planning permission, as the report sets out. The planning permission that was granted in 2002 has several conditions contained within it that are over-restrictive for a mobile home park and are matters that are properly considered under the site licence, which is an entirely separate issue dealt with by separate legislation by the Environmental Protection Team. So you can see some of the conditions as they are set out there. In effect, there was an approved layout plan on that 2002 permission, and the consequence of those conditions would be that if one unit was sited out of place, or any unit wanted to be sited in a different location, it would have required a new planning permission, which is a bit of a nonsense on a caravan site or a mobile home park, because those issues are covered by the site licence, and there are minimum standards that have to be adhered to with regard to the distance between units. And that in itself is self-limiting on the overall number of units that can be accommodated on that site. Some of the residents that wrote in initially were concerned about the fact that they might be moved off the site or to an alternative place on the site. But those matters could have happened at any time, and they're not covered by the current legislation. They're covered by separate legislation that protects residents. So the need to simplify that existing permission is the main issue. And in terms of the use of the land, which is what we need to consider for a mobile home park, the main issues in that are its visual impact and any issues of highway safety. There's no objections from the Highway Authority with regard to the access. It's unlikely that the number of units on there would increase to any extent such that the access would become an issue. And indeed, as the report points out, these units tend to be larger now, so it's likely that there might overall ultimately be a less number of units on that site than there might have been with the smaller ones as they used to be. The other issue is ecology. So I've just flagged up the main issues there early on, and I'll just carry on through the presentation and we'll address those issues as we go through. So remember the yellow arrows on the aerial photograph to start with. This one was taken from the furthest west point on Overton Road. This is actually leaning over a gate, and that's the view that you get. This is the Langham Gardens area, and that's the glade where those new units are. And then the large park is further across that you can't actually see from there. So that gives you an idea of how visible the units are from Overton Road. But I must stress that is literally a narrow field gate. The remainder of the hedge along Overton Road, even in the winter, is of such substance that unless you find a small gap like that, you really don't see anything through there. And what you do see is not largely or materially different to what has been there for a long time, despite these 4 new units that have been sited along the edge. So that hedge, in summer, you literally can't see through it at all. In winter, it is of such substance that it provides a very good screen. And it's a considerable distance across this field to the edge of the site. This is the back of one of the newer units. That's an original one that was sited on this rear boundary that we were talking about. So that first photograph was taken from way down there in the corner on the left from Overton Road. And you can see that there's what appears to be a timber fence along here, and that's looking the other way. There's definitely a timber fence here that's been there some time. So I think it's unlikely that there was a hedge of any substance that was taken out there. Because this was a hedge to a field, it would have been covered by the hedgerow regulation. You remember the issues we had at Blueville Lane some time ago with the removal of a hedge, when it was resolved not to take any action there because there was no evidence of what the hedge was. Well, similarly here, there's no evidence of what was there. But from what evidence we can see, it doesn't appear as though it was probably a hedge of any significance. But down at the other end of that road, there is the remains, you can see, of what appears to be probably brambles, but again, this existing fence looks as though it's been there for some time. So again, this is the latest aerial photograph that shows that boundary. That's that original one that we saw next to the new one, so there's now 4 new units in along there, and you can see that there was some vegetation along there, but it's just impossible to say what it was. These are just general photographs around the rest of the site. There are some fairly substantial trees on the site, and this gives you an idea of some of the units. Some of them are older, much smaller units, probably not much more than the larger static caravans, which are of some age, and that contrasts with the large new double units that have been sited on there recently. You can see there are some decent trees on the site. There's no proposals to remove any trees as part of this application. It's simply to establish a fresh planning permission for the use of the land. So the principle is clearly well established on there. There's been permissions for caravan sites on there, as you see from the report going back to the late 50s, I think. there's minimal visual impact from outside the site now as opposed to what there was going back several years, so I don't think there's any cause for concern from that point of view. The issue of ecology has been raised, and somebody said they'd seen bats on the site, and of course bats roost in trees and in some of these older units, but as I said, there's no proposals to remove trees from the site. And you'll note that in the recommendation there's a note to applicant reminding them of their statutory responsibility should they remove trees or older units to make sure that there are no protected species present. So subject to that modification of the 106 agreement, it's recommended that the permission be granted, as you can see with a fairly simplified list of conditions.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hunt. We don't have a board member, I don't know, Mr. Have you had any message?
Well, no, I'm quite happy to speak with you. I don't think there's a lot to debate on with this particular application. I can see where there may be some emotional issues, but that's a different planning consideration. It's been one of the places, having been born and bred in Rutland, I'm well aware that that's one of the areas where there are more affordable homes, so to speak. I've personally seen or heard no issues about Ranksborough. It's been there as long as I can remember. And as I say, I don't think there's much to debate. I go along with the recommendation.
Mr. Oxley?
I'd just like clarification in the officer's presentation. The project said it's unlikely numbers will increase, so there shouldn't be too much of an impact on the main road outside. And I noticed there's not actually a highways report that I can see having looked through I couldn't see anything from highways on that matter. So I just wanted clarification on the density of the change of this what is proposed will have on the density of the site and addressing the concerns of residents of the old park area. Perhaps it would be possible to put in a condition something along the lines of would it be possible to protect that part of, you mentioned going up the embankment was gardens, but I think the worry was the other side of the embankment, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm going to just refer you to top of page 67, highways, no objection noted in the consultation responses. Alright, sorry, I didn't see that. Well, with regard to the density, as you can see, it's fairly dense already. There's not a lot of scope. There are some vacant concrete pads here that's already constructed on the 2011 aerial photograph. I think they're mostly actually occupied now. So that there's not a lot of room to add any more units in there. As I said, some of the units tend to get a bit bigger, so with the minimum spacing distances required by the licence, it's self-limited anyway. And it's unlikely, potentially, 20 years ago, when the units were much smaller, there could have been a lot more units than was likely to be now, I think, because of the larger units and the distance they have to be apart. To a great extent. With regard to this area in here, if access could be gained in there, if the owner of the site were to reach an agreement with one of these units to put an access road in there, again subject to the conditions of the licence, which is not our affair, I can't see that there would be any harm in that particularly. It would be to be mobile residential units next to other residential units, so I really don't think it would be an issue.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have slight concerns, having noticed the sort of new developments along there. And what does worry me is that we have no record of any hedge, or bushes, or trees that were there originally and may have been removed without our knowledge. Travelling along the Overton Road now and looking in towards that site, it is much more noticeable now than it once was. The fact that there is a well-hedged screen along the roadside is of interest only because it does not belong to the site, it belongs to somebody else. And somebody else could well wish to cut down the hedge, cut the layer, so on and so forth, which would then really open up the view into that area. Now, at this late stage, it may be too late to request more improved landscaping. But noting from the photographs the closeness of those properties and their gardens and the fence to that field, I'm actually quite amazed that it's been allowed to happen like that.
Mr. Hunter, could you get
Well, as I said, the current layout of the site doesn't comply with the original planning permission, and that applies over the entire site, as well as those units that are sited along there. We don't have any record of what hedge was there. Similarly, we don't have any records of what comprises hedges anywhere else in the county for that matter. But yeah, you saw the photographs and the proximity of those units to that boundary, which is unfortunate. There simply isn't room to get any landscaping within the site on there. You would be relying on the applicant negotiating with the farmer to get a strip of land to do something, which you just can't guarantee. With the distance involved and the overall impact, you say it's maybe worse than it was. I don't know. You've got more local knowledge on that issue, but the hedge could have been taken down under the terms of the previous permission, and it wouldn't have been any different. So I think overall it's considered that what's there is acceptable. It doesn't have a detrimental visual impact.
Well, I would disagree with the last statement that what we have there now is, in my view, quite disagreeable from the impact. We have white buildings, popped there, right close to the boundary, and I think it is most unfortunate that whoever constructed those buildings did not have just a little more thought to the environment and to the look of the area. We've recently seen another house that's going to be constructed in a village, and the people there have taken much time and care about trying to build something that will actually blend into that particular environment. I think it's another lost opportunity.
I take the point, but I don't think it's...
I don't think... No, I just had to say something.
Mrs. Cartwright.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Cosy with the visual impact. I have looked at it from the road, and it is slightly jarring to see those light-coloured mobile homelands, sorry, what you call them. But what we're looking at is to regularise the 106, and as you say, these have been built so close to the boundary that I can't see that there's anything that we could do about it now. If this was a new development, we would most certainly want to have some landscaping along there, as we do with all new development that butts up to our countryside. But it seems to me we haven't got that opportunity with this application.
Any other members who haven't spoken? Mr. Gill, you propose the seconder, please. Mrs. Brennan, and those in favour, please. And against? And
well, I'm only against because I feel that I have to do.
I don't think you have to give motivation, Mr. Brennan.
Well, I feel that
is duly agreed. I'm just going to take a little bit of legal advice before the next thing. Before the presentation, so I'm going to make a brief statement before I disappear. It does seem to me, I mean, there are a lot of information there, members, and I don't propose to touch on those, and I hope, without wishing to put pressure on my Vice Chairman, that you will be able to debate the principle without going into the detail. The only thing I would say is that there are 5 criteria that need to be met, all 5 on this sort of application, and this application only needs 1. Again, I think it is a lifestyle choice, and I have a great deal of sympathy with that lifestyle choice, but that is not a planning issue. Again, I'm aware, because of the sheer scale of this particular document that is referred to in exempt, but it is purely supporting evidence on the part of the applicant, and it is a pamphlet dealing with the viability of small-scale enterprises such as the proposed one. I have read through it very carefully, and I would just like to share with you one bit of this particular document. It's the, I'll tell you in a second, smallest successful is the label of the thing, and it's item 9, and it says horticulture is generally more suited to low acreage livelihoods than livestock. And it seems to me that that says it all, and there is only one example nationwide of a mixed enterprise dealing with livestock and some horticulture that is remotely successful, and it says this enterprise is still being established, and that is only one. I make those comments. I will now hand over to Mrs. Vernon. I say I think it looks complex. It's actually very simple. It doesn't meet the criteria.
In one night, so we'll move to the office and presentation from Mr Hodgett. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, the site I think it's actually within Brooke parish, but you can see it's quite close to Braunston, Woodlane, Braunston, which through ground and drops down into the dip before rising up again in this direction. And the site is here, although there's this land here is understood to be owned by the applicant as well. Just zooming in on that. Certainly on the previous application that was subject to the successful appeal, this area of land here, this field here, and this area here are those that are concerned. There's an existing barn on the site there. The mobile home that was granted on appeal in 2009 sits just in front of it in that position. There's a polytunnel there. Let's have a close up at that in a minute. There are some sheep and some horses, 1 or 2 horses I think in here, and then down in this paddock at the end is where there are, I think, probably the bulk of the alpacas. And then within that area, again, there's the big barn, that's the temporary mobile home. There's a polytunnel there which is within an area fenced off for growing vegetables and salad. Hens are in that section there. This area here appears to be given over to pigs, and then again as you come down to the bottom of the site, across through this hedge, the land then disappears off up in that direction off the top of the screen. So there's a photograph looking sort of down into that field in a minute. And the proposal is for a permanent residential dwelling following the grant of the temporary permission in 2009 to site a 2-storey dwelling there, details of which are on your agenda. That is a view from the top of the hill down in Braunston itself is over the top there, and the barn is there. This is the area where the pigs and the polytunnel are, and then you've got the field at the bottom that disappears off in that direction. So there's the barn at the top of the site. You can see it slopes down quite steeply on this section parallel with the road. That's the very small mobile unit that was placed there after the appeal. And that permission, of course, ran out in May 2012, and we've been backwards and forwards on this proposal since just after that, as you can see from the correspondence in the appendices, which I apologise for the length, but I thought it was worth you seeing everything that's been said about it. That's the polytunnel, so the road runs down behind that hedge there, the growing area. Just looking back with the polytunnel in relationship to the barn. That's where the hens are. And those are the pigs. A couple of sows there due to have a litter at any time. And then down towards the bottom of that field, these are young male alpacas that are still waiting to reach maturity. And then that's looking back up again towards the top of the site. And then as you go down to the bottom, there's a gap, a field gate. And you can see there's a stream actually runs through this field. This is where the sheep are, and then that other bit of land right down at the far end there is where the other alpacas will be grazed. So those are the main issue is, has this farm that was granted permission on appeal performed sufficiently to build up its business as that temporary permission allowed it? It's actually been there 5.5 years now. Has it performed sufficiently to justify a permanent dwelling? You've seen the details of the dwelling in your agenda. I'm not on the screen. Essentially, it's for a timber-framed unit that is built with straw bales and clad timber on the outside. Just summarising the advice from our consultant, he still considers that the unit is part-time, less than half of a full-time person using his standard figures. Counter to that, the applicant claims that it's a very labour-intensive activity as to the way they operate it, and they do make a profit, a small profit, but it's enough for them to live on, and it would be enough to build this house because of the way that they claim they want to build it, with family help and basic materials. You'll see from the exempt papers that there's details of expenditure and what have you in there. And the appeal inspector in 2009 did lend some weight to the way that the applicant actually operates on the site. But your consultant, the appendix in your new site allocations and policies plan is virtually a copy of the old annex to PPS 7, which deals with these types of applications. And you'll see that the applicant's agent points out that that does say that operations that exist on a subsistence basis only can be acceptable where they're providing other benefits. But what the agent doesn't go on to say is the explanation as to what those other benefits are. And I've continued it there from that appendix. It's where somebody is managing an important landscape or wildlife habitat, and clearly that's not the case in this instance. The applicant's recently put forward more proposals as to what she wants to do to try and build the business up, but we're at the point now where the assessment is for a permanent dwelling, and the idea of the temporary dwelling was to allow those things to be done for the business to build up to be in a position now where the business was clearly capable of providing a farm worker a living and support the cost of a dwelling, and clearly that point hasn't been reached. Your consultant's advice is that it's the holding itself that has to be assessed, not the particular methods of the applicant, because the applicant could sell the plot tomorrow and somebody completely different could move in and take it over with a different way of life. So it's an unfortunate situation. It's been going on for a long time, and you've seen the whole story on your exempt papers. I don't need to go into those, but unfortunately we've come to the conclusion that we have to recommend it for refusal. That if you do refuse the application, there would have to be a separate enforcement report, because as you can see, that dwelling has been there now for 2.5 years, technically in an unauthorised position, because its permission expired in May 2012, and there is a danger that it could become lawful if it's allowed to remain there without some sort of permission in the future. So it's recommended refusal for the reasons stated.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Hodgett. I would like to obviously just remind members that we do have yellow papers this evening. Whilst I would like to avoid going into exempt if at all possible, particularly because we do have members of the public present. Obviously, if members wish to do so, then so be it. But I'll now head to the board member, Mr Goss.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much indeed. I've received...
Mr Goss, can you use your mic?
I've received, oh my goodness, I've received no representation from the parish meeting in Brooke. We've had similar applications in the past before this committee, and I fear that although one welcomes people who wish to start small holdings and what have you, I believe this particular application is slightly putting the cart before the horse. And unfortunately, I must agree with our advisor, and I don't feel that as a member of this planning committee I could support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Other members? Mr Dale.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just have clarification? We've got the site edged in red. Why haven't we got the rest of the land included in that? I think primarily because the site for the dwelling is where the red line is. But if we approve that tonight, it would only be on that edged in red, wouldn't it? It would be on the site indicated on your report. On page 77, that's the site layout showing where the dwelling will go in relation to that barn, which is roughly in the place where that timber building is now. But I thought it was all the rest of the land would be relevant to the site. We would be allowing the actual building on there without the rest of the land being part of it. Well, the applicant owns the remainder of the land, but the application site only relates. It's just that you sort of slightly inferred that you weren't quite sure whether that all the rest of the land was owned. No, well, I can check the file to see if there's a... I think it's important that... From what I remember, the convention is to outline the site in red and the other land owned by the applicant in blue. I can't just recall offhand whether this one follows that convention, but it's not a legal requirement to indicate what's the land that they own. If I
could possibly assist Councillor Dale, what you've got edged in red on your plan is the location of the dwelling only. As Mr Hodgett went on to say, whether or not the rest of the land is owned is immaterial in a planning sense. The assessment that you've seen in your exempt papers has been based on the holding, the whole site, the holding. But what they're actually trying to secure is a dwelling in that location, and it is necessary to identify the curtilage of that dwelling. So that's why that's outlined in red. And you need not really concern yourself as to whether or not they own the rest.
Thank you. The site plan does show the dwelling line in blue as far as it goes off the edge of the plan.
Mr Oxley.
Well, following on from that, I mean, given that we have been asked to make a decision on whether or not this is a viable agricultural holding in order to justify a dwelling, I I concur with what Councillor Dale has said in that the whole site has to be taken into consideration whether or not they are being able to, whether or not they will be able to justify putting a dwelling onto this site. I presume that's why Councillor Dale made that point. And I mean, I have similar concerns. I mean, Mr Hodgett, when he started the presentation, said there's only one small holding in the whole of England, or the whole of the United Kingdom, which is financially viable. If I remember rightly, is that right? Did you say that?
I think so.
No, I think you were referring to comments made by Councillor Baines.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Baines, yeah, okay. And it is on a piece of land, the size of this piece of land, I won't go into exempt, but I would suggest that it's going to be hard to create a business which is going to be able to generate a lot of money sufficient to be able to justify the parameters which we are looking at today. And there's the rub. So you have a piece of land which somebody is using for agricultural purposes, and they need to be able to have access to that land at certain times of the year. So, I mean, we are really between a rock and a hard place in that context, and there will always be people who I'm sure will want to buy a piece of land and then farm it. But if we're going to be asking them to justify, financially justify that holding before they can put a permanent dwelling on it, it's going to be very difficult for them to do that, because there just isn't sufficient land to actually generate that amount of money. So I'm waiting to hear what everybody else says, but I can say it is a very difficult one, this one.
Mr Gary.
I'm going to completely oppose Mr Oxley's last few words. This is a very difficult one. It's not. It's damned easy, this one. Over 20 years I've seen many applications for such residences with agricultural tie. This is probably the least viable that I've ever come across. Now, not only were we given 3 years to prove the case, I understand they've had over 5 years to prove the case. Now, there may be some supporting letters from customers of the applicants. They may be doing a good job of what they're actually doing, but in no way is this going to provide a full-time agricultural wage. The idea of building a cheap house to warrant permission, then you could easily sell that permission and someone could build a considerably larger house. Those photographs demonstrate to me, and I know the site, I've known the site for 30 years, it's poor, it's low quality land. It's not, it's very wet land, and those photographs would demonstrate that. I understand that our agent's not seen any financial documents to demonstrate. Keep looking at the legal officers.
I'm very conscious when we mentioned financial documents about going into exempt.
Now, I'm not going into those financial documents in detail, but people do want to live in the open countryside, but they make umpteen programs on the subject. To get permission to live in the open countryside in your own home, to me, that's a special permission, and you've got to justify that permission. And the applicant should want to provide as much information as the local planning authority may wish to see, and that would be financial documents. I understand of the years that they've been operating there, there's actually been one profitable year, or 1 year is no good. Neither here nor there. As this is largely based on livestock, and I'm well aware of the needs of the DEFRA to record livestock movements, I would want to show to the local authority animal movement records to back up their financial records. you can see from those photographs, I say, the condition of the land, and you can, having read the yellow page, the large amount of feed for those animals, it's all got to be bought in. So in fact, it could be done on an industrial estate. It's all bought in feed. You cannot grow crops on that land. It's just too bad. Okay, you get a little bit of sheep grazing, but that's there. This is particularly attractive countryside, and the case is far from approved in the viability. I couldn't possibly support this, having seen other cases that we as a local authority have not given permission to, which are much more viable. I'm only looking at this case and not others, but they may be doing the job well, but they've got to do it on a much larger scale to justify a permanent dwelling on the site.
Well, I would presume to make comment on the agricultural merits of it with all these comments on the panel.
Sorry.
And I do have sympathy with the applicants, but I have to go with our agricultural consultant and agree with what he has advised us. Could you just tell me, do we actually live in that mobile that's on the site? It looks very tiny.
Yes, they tell us they do. It is small. I think I'm not sure if it's even got a separate bedroom. It might just have a sleeping area. But there's definitely a kitchen area and a sitting area. You couldn't quite see looking into it because it was full of dogs around it. But there was the applicant did indicate that the sleeping area was around the corner.
Mr. Woodcock, have you got anything you'd like to add? No. On that basis, as everybody has spoken, would you have a proposal, please?
I'm happy to put forward a proposal go along the recommendation of one of reviews. Okay,
and do I have a seconder for that, please? Mr. Dale. So, all those in favour of refusal, please? 6. And against? And abstentions? Thank you very much indeed. Right, I'll move back round. Get Mr. Bates.
Have you seen this one? It's a chicken chip.
As recommendation. Thank you very much.
It's probably a bit Is that 4 I don't know.
Thank you very much. I think the only remaining thing that way is the appeals on the very end, 208. One has been launched, and you will see that yet again we're on a winning streak with the one that actually was dismissed, which was a delegated decision. Are there any questions or comments from anyone? Right, in that case, 10 minutes past 7, close. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.